This webinar is being recorded and will be available on the city's website afterwards if anyone needs to refer back to this. So I just want to start with an introduction. I'm Clayton Ender. I'm managing this program. So you're able to reach out to me with any questions or comments on the program. If the format of this webinar tonight, we're going to have John Swanson with Polk County Soil and Water Conservation District. He's going to provide a presentation for us on what soil quality restoration is, and the city of Johnston is partnering with Polk County as well as the Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship to implement this project. A little background: we have received $125,000 from Iowa Department of Agriculture and Land Stewardship to implement this citywide soil quality restoration program. If anyone has questions that come up at any time, please put them in the chat box and we will get to those at the end. And the format we're looking at doing today is a brief presentation followed by a Q&A session. With that, unless John thinks I missed anything, I'm going to turn it over to him and let him begin his brief presentation.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Clayton. Can everybody hear me okay and see the slide?
Yes, the participants will not be able to verbally respond.
Yes. Yep. So like Clayton said, my name is John Swanson. I work with Polk County. And over the years, I've become something of an expert at soil quality restorations. We've really stumbled onto some really big success the last couple of years as far as how do we make programs easier for homeowners. We're really excited to see Johnston go after this grant and receive the grant, and really what we hope will be a very exciting new program for the city of Johnston residents. Again, I have a short presentation to kind of go through, about 15 minutes, and then we'll, anybody's questions, this is a chance to ask. The goals of today are really just to share the basics of the program, share the basics of soil quality restoration, and really give everyone a chance to get some of their questions out for the program. And so to kick things off, I really like to start off with like kind of the basics, like why are we talking about soil? Why are we talking about people's front yards? And for people like Clayton and people like myself, we're tasked with how do we manage our water that comes off of our city streets? You can see in the top left picture there, that is a lot of our residential neighborhoods. And in that area, a lot of water is going to make it off of those yards. It's going to run into our streets. And once it makes it into the street, it's going to make it into our storm sewer system, as the picture on the top right there. And something a lot of people don't realize is once that water makes it into the storm sewer system, it's going to go to our rivers, streams, and lakes. And with that, it's going to carry any pollution that's in people's front yards or any pollution that's on our streets. It's going to carry it to those waterways. And I love to throw this picture on the bottom left here in because this is actually from Okoboji Lake, arguably one of our most wonderful natural resources in the state. And even up there, the lake is drained by the neighboring streets, houses, and storm sewer systems. And bringing it closer home, not only do we see pollutants coming through that storm sewer system, but we also see our streams are starting to erode quite drastically. Even in the city of Johnston, the city has done a lot of work to stabilize the streams, and it's quite expensive. And what we see on the bottom right there is what used to be a very small stream, about a foot wide, a foot deep. An upstream neighborhood got built, those storm sewers got put into place, and that water came a lot faster. And it caused that stream to start deepening and widening itself, which is a common situation we're dealing with in the Des Moines Metro. And really, if you boil it down even more, think about your own yard, think about your own house, think about what happens when it rains. Where does water run off of? In some cases, it's running off your rooftop, out of downspouts, it's running off your driveway. But we also see in many cases, it's not getting absorbed very well into the front yards. And all that water, again, it's making it into the storm sewer. That intake that's in your curb, in the front of your streets. And so it really boils down to what can we do to slow the water down or possibly even let it soak into the ground on the property. And that's where programs like the one that City of Johnston is doing is based around, let's get that water soak in, and every drop of water we get to not go into our storm sewer system is going to help relieve some of that water quality, erosion, and even in some cases flooding that happens. And you compound that with the reality is the last 30, 40 years, when mass grading really started happening, a lot of homes are left with rather poor soils, especially in those 90s houses, early 2000s. A lot of houses have high clay content soil, very little good, healthy soils. And what homeowners are left with are yards, turf grass that's not doing very well, maybe spotty lawns like you see on the right there, maybe pooling water because water is stuck sitting on the surface, lawn that goes dormant very quickly during the heat of the summer. All of these being indicators of poor soil. So we've really seen in recent years, as we're going to get into talking about soil quality restoration, it's become our most popular practice because it does two things. One, it actually repairs those soils, and what homeowners get at the end of the day is a healthier lawn, which is very mutually beneficial. And the reality is, with poor soils that are high in clay and are compacted, have little topsoil, very little water is actually going to soak into those soils, which at the end it compounds those issues in the storm sewer system and down in our rivers and lakes. And so that's where soil quality restoration comes into play. This is a simple process. It's a three-step process that, again, is so simple and it's so effective that it's become very popular in recent years. The first step is doing a deep tine aeration, which is going to pull plugs out of the lawn. And now many of you may have aerated before, and a lot of times in these residential highly compacted lawns, you may only get an inch, maybe 2-inch plugs. With this practice, we're really trying to get a 3, 4, sometimes a 5-inch deep plug, because in step 2, what we're doing is spreading compost over the surface of the lawn at a depth of about 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. And what I tell folks, it's really like that picture you can see there in the center. It's going to get an even black coating over the lawn. You're not going to completely cover your grass, but it's going to be deep. And what it's going to start doing is it's going to work its way down into those aeration holes and really start incorporating into the soil. And the grass is going to grow right up through it. And the final step of it is actually doing an overseeding. So this is not required. You can do soil quality restoration without, but it's a great time to benefit the homeowner, get them another, do an overseeding over the lawn, and really just give you a better product, which would be the case here in the Johnston program. And so doing those 3 steps, us as the government, Polk County, City of Johnston, we're investing in this because it's giving us a series of benefits for you as the homeowner and for us as the city and county. At the end of the day, what it's doing is it's reducing compaction in the lawn. It's increasing pore space and organic matter, which at the end of the day, it's making your yard act more like a sponge. So when it does rain, your yard's actually going to soak it in. It's going to hold a lot more water. And then you're going to see a healthier lawn because the rain is actually absorbing into the lawn. Here's a picture I love to throw into flyers, and we put it on brochures. This is a home we did in Ankeny. You can see this is about a week after application. On the left there, the really stark green, you can see some of that compost still, the grass is still growing up through it. But this stark color difference, I'd say we see this about 30% of the time. And it's really, it's a response of that turf grass to this natural input of organic matter, which essentially is like a natural fertilizer. And over the years, like we started doing our first soil quality restorations in the Des Moines Metro about 10 years ago. And honestly, we were trying to determine how valuable is this for government funding to go towards. So we really wanted to seek out and put a baseline as far as like, what does the science actually tell us about this? So over the last decade, several different times, we've actually done soil testing on over 100 yards. Now we've done them pre-soil quality restoration and post. And a couple of findings, and again, I know this is very technical, but for me, a person who does this stuff all the time, it's very exciting that unfortunately in a lot of our residential homes, we see little to no organic matter in those yards, 0 to 2% essentially, which is a very unhealthy soil system. And what we see with this one-time application of compost and aeration doing the soil quality restoration, we generally see a 3 to 5% increase in organic matter, which again, probably doesn't mean much to you, but we also at the county work a lot with farmers. And to get a 3 to 5% increase in organic matter, that might take us 20 to 30 years. But because of the effectiveness of this compost, we're able to really take some huge strides on these small residential lawns. And that's where this all came together for Johnston. So Johnston, not Clive there, sorry, missed that correction, received this grant, which covers 50% of the funding. It creates a streamlined approach to the process. which we'll get into in a minute. And really the goal is to group together 150 residential properties to hire one contractor where the city does the hiring of the contractor. The homeowner applies and makes payments to the city, and the city takes care of all the logistics with that contractor. And this is our third iteration of doing this. Polk City first tried this out 2 years ago. We were able to get around 60 yards done. Clive took the next step, getting a little over 100, and Johnston's really taking the step towards knocking out of the park and also doing some of the online mapping that some of you may be familiar with. So you can see what some of the costs are for you as a homeowner. And so for a homeowner, we talked about, I mentioned briefly that simplified process. So we know you folks are everyone's busy. People have jobs, they have kids to take to soccer practice. And so making this a simple process for you has been one of our goals. So Johnston actually developed an online resource where you can log in and look at your home. And at the click of a button, you can see an estimated cost to have the practice done on your lawn. If that cost looks like something you'd be interested in, you simply can click to submit your application. As Clayton mentioned, the city's received over 100 applications so far. And once all those applications are in, the city's going to bid out the project, and you're going to be receiving an offer letter that is your formal offer of what the cost would be. And if you look at that cost and it's something that you're like, yeah, that works for me, I'd like to move forward, you simply provide your payment to the city, and you're going to get some notifications and communications, and simply the contractors are going to show up and you're going to get to enjoy the benefits of this SQR. And putting kind of that on a project timeline as far as what to expect, we're sitting here in early May. And the goal is to get people to submit their interests in April and May, pending getting enough interest in the city, which the response has been very good so far. The city's actually going to bid out the project to a contractor in the month of June. Essentially drill down, we'll get an exact per square foot cost. And then in July, every house is going to get a formal measurement, including a short site visit from city or county staff. And then you will be receiving a letter that essentially says, if you'd like to proceed, your 50% cost is X dollars. And you'll be given a window of roughly 30 days to pay. And if you choose to proceed, you can make your payment in the month of August. Leaving us just in time. Really the best time of year to do soil quality restorations is early fall. So we really be looking at knocking out all these projects in September and maybe going a little bit into October. And so I really like, part of the goal here is to kind of go over some of the common questions folks ask. And a lot of people ask us like, okay, I'm the homeowner, what do I need to do if I choose to proceed? And so we'll be getting a pre-application notification that asks you to just do a couple simple things to help make this project successful. First one is if you do have shallow utilities, and that would include sprinkler or irrigation systems and invisible dog fences mainly, to have those marked out. And we can provide some later on in the process, if you choose to proceed, a little bit more direction on how you can get that done. Prior to the contractor showing up and doing the work, we ask you to mow your lawn a little bit shorter than you usually would. So 2 to 3 inches, but not necessarily, we don't want you to scalp the lawn, but certainly a little bit shorter, and pick up all pet waste. So doing these things is going to help. Once the compost is done, it's going to stimulate some growth, and we want that grass to grow up through the compost. Post application, it's really important to note that it's immediately safe for kids and pets. However, you can expect some tracking. If the compost is wet, you take your dog out to the bathroom for that about a week process, or the kids run out there, they might be tracking into the house. And then about a week later, it'll be time to mow again when it reaches kind of that normal mowing length. And we've done a really good job the last couple of years of getting the contractors to have a good uniform spread. But sometimes you might see a few little bit thicker areas. And in those spots, sometimes it wouldn't be bad to take a rake and kind of fluff the grass up through it. And watering is very important post application. I'll go over that a little bit more detail next. We also get a lot of questions about compost. So this compost is actually coming directly from Metro Waste Authority. It actually is the stuff that they pick up in the green lid cans. They collect yard waste. They go through about a 6-month process to turn it into this compost. It's not dirt. If you have unlevel spots in your yard, you shouldn't expect this compost to level your yard. Really, it's going to work its way down into those holes. And really important, Soil quality restoration, the real purpose is what this compost is doing is it's improving your soils. It doesn't kill weeds. It's not like a miracle cure for your yard. So it's not, we want people to not expect like, this isn't like to perfect a lawn, but this is to improve those soils, which at the end of the day do help your lawn be more healthy. And also notable that this compost does not have manure in it, and it doesn't really have any type of stinky smell. It smells very much like dirt or soil. Folks also ask those of you that have your lawn treatments, that have lawn treatments done, compost, it does serve very much so as a natural fertilizer. If you choose to proceed thinking about, okay, early September, this is going to happen, we recommend that you stop any weed and feed or herbicide applications about a month, 3 to 4 weeks prior to the project starting. It is okay to spot treat some weeds, but definitely follow the consultant label for products and for seeding interval instructions. And essentially what that means is if we're going to be overseeding, we don't want you to put down any herbicides that would inhibit that grass from germinating. I mentioned earlier on about that deep tine aeration. This is what you can expect to see. Generally, it's a industrial sized aerator that's going to pull out these, that's going to get through that top kind of grass layer and get 3 to 4 inches is what we're shooting for. Beneath that, we have an incredibly dry summer like we did last year. We're certainly going to be closer to that 3 inches. But sometimes we do get up to that 5 inches, which you can imagine if you do have irrigation systems or sprinkler heads, we'll want to have those marked so they don't get hit, or invisible dog fence as well. And folks like ask, how do we apply the compost? How do the contractors do it? And there's really 3 ways. The city, the county, we don't dictate, say how the contractor has to do it. We just make sure that they, at the end of the day, meet the practice specifications. So we make sure they put the proper amount on. And some contractors actually spread it by hand, and they have a team that shows up. They spread it with wheelbarrows and they spread it with rakes, like on the top right there. We have another contractor that actually has the compost loaded into a sprayer truck and they spray it onto the lawn. And then we have other contractors that have different types of spreaders, mechanical spreaders, like on the left there. And over the last couple of years, they've really perfected. All 3 of them do a great job. And certainly it's on us experts to go out and check the lawn and make sure they're doing a good job. And we know that just because you're doing a mass production, you can't limit the quality of the work. And we know we're going to get a lot of overseeding as a part of this project. We find it to be very complementary to the practice. It helps fill in the grass or lawns that are already spotty. Generally have a long conversation with the contractor about seed mix. So this would be something you'd be hearing more communications with if you decide to proceed, about how the contractor is proposing. A lot of times that comes with investigating what type of grass is across town, and really with that year's weather conditions and windows, what is the best bet to give homeowners the best option? And something we know we always get lots of questions about. So something we try to certainly work with homeowners if they have special considerations as well. And incredibly important, I leave this one kind of near the end. We strongly recommend that immediately after the soil quality restoration is complete, that it is watered for 7 to 10 days if there's no rain in the forecast. Some folks like to kind of spread it out multiple times a day. If you look online, there's a simple method called the tuna can method, where there's a YouTube video how to do it. You can simply stick out a tuna can in your yard, you turn your sprinklers on, and when that tuna can's full, that's how much water we want on your lawn, at least once a day. And it'll tell you with your sprinkler system about how long it took to fill up that tuna can. And what it does, again, it's going to help with that seed germination. It's going to help promote active growth. So the grass is going to grow right up through the compost. And it's going to help that compost. It essentially turns to liquid almost and works its way down into those holes. And really get you, the goal is about 10 to 14 days after, you wouldn't even see that compost in the lawn anymore. And with that, I think we can turn over to questions. I see there's a couple in the Q&A that we can go through, and certainly dive into anything that y'all would want to hear more about. Now is the chance to ask, and we can certainly help answer them.
I'll go ahead and read a couple questions. After the first time this is done, should it be done on a frequent basis? If so, what is the frequency? For example, yearly?
Great question. So I've helped with about 400 I've done about 400 of these. I would say 95% of them folks do it at one time and they're satisfied with the results. Where the other 5% where it's come is where we have some yards that are just really, really poor shape. And some folks have done it subsequently after that. And if you did want to do it multiple times, my recommendation would be to do it no more than once a year. And I don't believe I've ever met anyone I've met someone that's done it 3 times before they were kind of really satisfied with the quality of their soil. So you certainly can do it more, but for most folks, it's a one-time practice.
Okay, who will be responsible for damage done to buried utility lines if they get cut?
Yep.
With the aerating?
So we will be sharing some communications really clear, so you know like who you need to contact or how do you find out where those buried utility lines are. To be honest, we have hit them before. We work with the contractor. If they've been marked and they get hit, that'll be on the contractor's requirements. If it's evident that they're not marked, we would generally follow up with the homeowner and say, hey, we need to get this marked before we proceed. But so it would be on the contractor as a general rule.
All right, next one. I got an estimate directly from a contractor that was much higher than what the website is estimating. Is this estimate based on the city getting a deal?
Absolutely. So I would say, so we've helped, there are programs, including in the city of Johnston, where you can hire your own contractor, you can submit your own paperwork and get reimbursed the cost. And in fact, most cities in the metro have that right now. And on average for that one-off, I call it a one-off practice, I'm a lot of times seeing in the 28 to 33 cents a square foot cost. Contrary in this idea, when a contractor is able to line up this many projects, last year in Clive, we got it down to 21 cents. And the year before in Polk City, we're at 22 cents. So a significant cost savings, about 30%. And that's really about efficiency. Contractors can buy things in bulk, they can plan in bulk, and that's where we've seen this cost savings, which we're really excited about. I think Johnston did a very safe thing in putting 25 cents as the estimator tool, because I certainly would hope we'd be below that, but hopefully we can keep driving costs down by lining up more projects.
Will Johnston apply for this grant every year?
Clayton or Dave, I'll let you guys take that one.
Yeah, I'll take this one. We have a stormwater grant program separate from this that does run annually. That's 50% of the cost, up to $1,250. That is a reimbursement program, which is like structured different than this one. The grant that we're talking about tonight, it is direct from the Iowa Department of Agricultural Land Stewardship, and we can certainly explore applying for it for multiple years, but in preliminary conversations, there may be limited opportunities to get refunded through the state for this program once we've already been awarded this, unless we make something a little more specific. So to be determined.
All right, if we were to provide the seed for the overseeding step, would that lessen the amount we would need to pay?
So generally we have not. So in past years, we have not done that. We have allowed homeowners to provide their own seed, but that's something you could certainly. My recommendation would be to contact Clayton directly and talk about that. The seed costs on the grand scheme of things are generally relatively small, so we've opted to try to keep things as simple as possible. And not, you can imagine, the more we move from the straight line path, the more complicated and less efficient things could get. But I'd say certainly to contact the city and have that discussion. But what we have done in many cities is the homeowner says, I really want this type of seed. I have it, I'm going to set it out, and we notify the contractor that will be the case, and that has caused no problems.
Earlier, you mentioned making payments to the city. Would that be a lump sum or divided up into payments?
Currently, that is the plan is that it would be a lump sum payment, but we can certainly have further discussions on that, and we have not solidified how that will be paid, but the current thinking is it would be a lump sum payment.
Yeah, in the past, in other communities that we've helped, it's been a lump sum. But again, this is new. Johnston's never done this before. Every year, cities are honing it in and exactly what's best for them. So as a general theme, as you're hearing today, like reach out to Clayton at the city and discuss if you have special things you'd like for us to consider.
Is there a maximum number of homes the grant will cover?
There's not a maximum number of homes. We have $125,000 total from the state to spend, and that will cover as much as we can with that all 125,000.
Do we have to do the full yard, or can we choose to do the front yard but not the backyard?
Certainly, we can scope out or reduce the scope of the treatment to just a specific area of the property, and I'd be happy to get you a customized quote if you reach out to me on what that would look like.
Where is the link to apply for this program?
I will drop that in.
And a couple of things to think about, Clayton's popping that in the chat is demand drives funding. So our hope would be, like, there's been a lot of initial demand. If the people keep applying, we can expect that some folks are going to apply and they're going to decide not to move forward. So really, if it interests you, I think just getting your name on the list, and if we're like, hey, there's still 50 homes that we aren't able to get to, it really kind of puts the pressure on us. Like, let's see if we can find some more funding to keep this moving forward. And that's what's going to make it really successful. And another thing that's going to happen is we'll get, once this work starts happening and people start seeing it in their neighborhoods, generally we see a lot of interest from the neighbors and really positive response. We've just seen that every time. So although there's, like, people are applying right now, there will likely be opportunities that if you see this happening in your neighborhood and you're like, you could still throw your name for either being on a waiting list or if there's still funding available this fall to get your name on the list.
So hopefully my screen is sharing now. Is it, John or
Yep.
Cassie? Yes?
Yes.
So my contact information and the website is here in the bottom right.
So if you go to that website, you can actually type in your address and you'll see an estimated cost. And from there, you can click to proceed if you'd like to apply to be put on the initial list.
And I'm also very happy to chat with you on the phone, or if you send me an email, respond back and do the estimate for you. Whichever works easiest for you, they're all available.
Next question is, do they do ditches?
So it kind of depends how you define a ditch, but we've certainly done swales or areas where we've seen a lot of water flowing. We've also done very steep yard sections. Kind of an interesting, the compost, when it gets wet, it gets very sticky and tacky. And again, it starts incorporating rather quickly with grass growth. So we've had very minimal issues with it washing, even with a big rain, or it washing off a hillside. But if you do have like a ditch, those type of things, once you get your name in the application, we'll actually be doing a quick site visit to every home to look for any site specific things before, like, we need to look at it before a contractor shows up. And that's also where we're doing the final measurement. So I can assure you that every yard will get looked at. And if there's a site, an area that's not suitable, which there certainly could be, we would be able to notify you and discuss that before any payment or any contractor were to show up.
Next question, MetroNet buried optical cable 2 to 3 inches. I have only a vague idea. How will that be handled?
Yeah, so we've run into that as well. So we have a contract with MetroNet and a process we can go through to have them come out and mark that utility. So that would be a part of if you submit to apply, there'll be a communication exactly a how-to guide to get your utilities marked. So that'd be something we'll be helping you with.
Next is, what are your thoughts on using sand after the process is completed?
Yeah, so sand, I've never done it, but I've met contractors who do sand specifically for yard leveling. it can be done in a very similar method where it incorporates rather quickly. In some cases, they can even do it quite thick and the grass will grow up through it. To me, I think it could safely be done in conjunction, but certainly some of these contractors, like they're experts in this, and a lot of times they do that work too. That would be a great question for the contractor. And we'll actually be doing a similar webinar to this later in the summer, so you all can meet the contractor and actually ask them questions as well.
Next one, if someone is approved and for reasons have to move, can the homeowner pay include this service to the next homeowner? Tricky one.
That's a good one. I think, again, case by case, I think if our recommendations that we would, okay, my recommendation from the county, and this is certainly a partnership, would be for us to discuss it with the new homeowner before, to make sure they were on board and supportive of it before we were to move forward with a new homeowner.
But
Someone
certainly,
said,
if the existing homeowner wants to pay, that would be fine.
Yeah. These are good questions.
Yeah. The next one is, will you take my money now? My lawn is dead.
And so I'll tell you too, we've like, sometimes we'll go out and look at a lawn and perhaps sometimes, again, we want to make this a mutual win. If a lawn is like in really bad shape, there might be some extra considerations we would communicate with you about, because this is a good chance to, like, for example, sometimes you could go a little bit deeper if the lawn is in really bad shape and really get even more benefits out of it. But again, that's why we do the site visit and have a community and give you guys a chance to communicate. But people have been really happy. That's why I've continued to really be supportive of this, because folks just have a really good experience and the benefits are really legitimate and help give you a better lawn. I mean, I've done this on my own lawn and it's really beneficial.
Next one is, when do you know when or if your yard is selected?
We'll be finalizing those cost estimates in early July, once we have those, that the contractor on board and the final pricing. And that would be the time that we'll send out the formal application for you to submit. So it'd be that early July time frame.
Yes. So very much first come, first serve at this time. So people are applying right as we speak. Project, it gets bid out to a contractor and say they're like, I'm 23 cents a square foot. That's now going to dictate how many yards can be done. So then all the yards, they get a quick site visit and an in-person measuring. And then again, first come, first serve, all those people, they get notified until the money is essentially expended. But then we would expect some folks to be like, I'm not moving forward. And then we'll keep going down the list if we have not gone through it already. So you'd get a notification in July with a final cost and an application, and you get to decide if you want to move forward. And then once you pay, you're formally on the go list.
Next one is, without a sprinkler, watering that much a day for 7 to 10 days is an awful lot. Is there a better way to water short of rain?
That's a great point. And my take, again, having helped a lot of people, it's really, I would say it's a requirement, is you have to get it watered if there's no rain, even if it's putting a spring or whatever it has to take to get some water on it, because you want that growth. What you don't want is that compost to just sit on the grass, which will happen if it's not growing. Now, that being said, this being done in the fall, it's not going to kill your grass if it does sit there. And what'll happen, why I really like it in the fall, is all winter long, that each time it snows and then melts, it's going to continue to slowly push that compost down and continue to break it down. And we see the really cool benefits in the spring. Like the last picture that was on my slide was in this following spring. It's the first lawn to green up. So our recommendation, again, to water it. And if you don't, it's going to sit on the grass for a little bit longer, and you just run the risk of a negative thing happening, like it's smothering your grass, which we see very rarely if it's not over applied, or never if it's not over applied and watered.
Next one, are the contractors able to work underneath trees with larger root systems?
Yes, they are. Generally, what you see is there might be, they won't aerate around, especially if it's like a maple tree with shallow roots. In those cases, they may just spread the compost, and a lot of times they'll spread it by hand around the trees. So again, very case by case, and something we would note. And again, and when we're out there on the site visit, and if you think about a lot of lawns, a lot of turf grass doesn't like the shade that much. And you might also have poor soil conditions. So those two things together give you very spotty grass under trees. If you can repair the soils, and although the grass may not still be super happy, it's not combating both of those issues. We've seen a lot of improvements in those highly shaded areas after an SQR.
Can USIC mark all underground lines?
We do not require a one call ticket because the utilities that they are marking, number one, they don't mark a lot of the shallow, like the MetroNet or the irrigation lines or the invisible dog fences. The ones that they are marking would not be impacted by the deep tine aeration. We had, in fact, did a fun story. We did have a USIC one call person actually call us one year saying that we were breaking state code. I actually went to the Attorney General's office. We discussed what we were doing, and they agreed. Let alone that we've never hit any of the utilities that they mark. So that's been our experience and our recommendation. However, you certainly could easily call them and they could mark it.
Can you tell me about the weed control?
Yes. So here's the gist, the reality of it. If you have weeds in your yard now, you're going to have weeds in your yard after soil quality restoration. It's not going to decrease the amount of weeds. Years ago, we used to have some weed seed issues in the compost. The last 3-4 years, they've done a really good job. We haven't seen negative, like more weeds coming into the yard. But that's like part of why we're here today, is like set expectations. Again, the purpose of this and why we're investing in it is to get your yards to soak in water better and be a healthier absorber of rainwater. And you can continue to treat your lawn. We just we don't want it treated like in the month prior. So like the month of August, don't treat your lawn. Largely to do with the germination of the overseeding. We don't want to negatively impact that seed.
If funds run out, can we still leverage the contractor's negotiated pricing?
So in the current setup, sorry, go ahead, Clayton.
Were they able to do that in Polk City or Clive?
I don't remember it ever coming up.
So we were able to we were able to in Polk City fund everyone who applied. In Clive, they created a follow. They actually were to get some new fundraising to do a follow-up application at the same price. But I think if the contractors were operating in your area, a couple of the contractors are really into this. Like they can do a lot of lawns very quickly now. I think it'd be very easy for you guys to reach out and be like, hey, when you come through my neighborhood, I'd like my lawn done too. And so we'd be happy to, I think it's very safe to say we'd be happy to share who the contractor is and their contact information, and they could discuss when they're coming through your part of town. If you can't make it on the list and you really want to have the project done, and maybe you could still do the traditional existing yearly program with Johnston.
That will certainly be something we'll have to discuss further with the contractor once they're brought on board.
Yeah.
Next one, I just submitted my application, I think, but there is no confirmation email. Can we email you to confirm the application went through?
Yes, you can email me. For that particular person, I can confirm right now, I do see it in my queue. Unfortunately, that is one limiting feature of this system that we created, is we did not have the technical capacity to have it auto send a email. I wish I had a good solution here for that, but I think the easiest solution is give me a call or send me an email, and I'm happy to let you know. But I will also be following up submittals with an email as well. So you'll receive an email from me one way or the other.
The one awesome thing that Johnston's doing is this online tool you can look. We never could figure out how to give people an idea of what their cost was until this mapping exercise that they put together, which for me, I was really excited to you could quickly look and just get a ballpark cost of of what the project would cost for you. So certainly some bugs to still work out.
There used to be a program for rain barrels. Is that still out there to help with water costs?
Yes, it is. We will cover 50% of the cost up to $75 maximum, limit one rain barrel per address. For that application, that's available on the city's website as well, or you can just email me and I'm happy to email that direct to you. For those that are listening, that's a simple process that you can go out and make your purchase, and provided you get us a copy of the application, pay receipt, and picture of your rain barrel within 30 days of your purchase, we'll get you reimbursed.
Where is the online application for SQR?
There's not a formal application out there yet. It's just the online estimator tool that hopefully my screen's still sharing. If you go to that website, cityofjohnston.com/SQR Johnston, that'll get you access to that tool, and you can submit it there, or as I've said, email me, call me, stop into City Hall and talk with me, whatever means works best for you.
Are you contracting with one contractor, or will there be multiple contractors?
We expect this project to be one contractor. We've been in some initial contacts with them to make sure that there are contractors available and interested and have capacity to handle this. And we've gotten very positive feedback. We had 2 different contractors do this project the last 2 years. Both of them very interested in doing this project as well. So one contractor.
That was the last question.
Awesome. Good questions.
I do believe there was one that I saw earlier on that we didn't address, and we do have a secondary grant available with the city, and the question was if we can combine the two for multiple projects. Our other grant we have available is 50% of the cost up to $1,250 for projects that improve water quality or reduce stormwater runoff. That one is set up as a reimbursement program. And yes, we can certainly explore options to do multiple projects on your property. And I would be very happy to meet with you, chat with you about those opportunities.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody.
Give people one last opportunity to toss in any last minute questions they may have. Not seeing anything popping in. I want to thank everyone for attending today. I would highly encourage you, reach out to me. No cost to get a free cost estimate. You don't have to make a commitment now. It just gets you on our contact list and gets you a place reserved in line so that you can be prepared to go in the fall if you so choose. But like I said, no cost, no commitment at this time other than just join our contact list and get that cost estimate.
Excellent. Thanks, Clayton. Thanks, Cassie. And thanks, Dave.
Thank you, John and Cassie.
See you later.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.